It's the most wonderful time of the year.
And yet, just as the mistletoe is hung and the twinkling lights come out, there's this.
The war on Christmas.
The war on Christmas. The war on Christmas.
So is there really a war on Christmas?
To get to the bottom of whether or not there's a war on Christmas, we reached out to our friend, Carol Carovilla.
Carol covers religion at HuffPost.
I actually, side note, I love Christmas.
Carol says the war on Christmas is
This idea found often in conservative Christian circles that the left has somehow launched a war against Christmas with the goal of stripping the holiday of its religious context.
Examples could include TV networks promoting holiday programming instead of Christmas programming.
Disney brings the magic of the holiday season.
folks saying happy holidays instead of Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays to all of you.
Or even Starbucks cups not being Christmassy enough.
And I told them my name is Merry Christmas. So guess what? Starbucks, I tricked you.
You know, when you're a Christian, it makes you feel like something's wrong with your religion.
So that's how you hear people say, oh, they're taking Christ out of Christmas and trying to remind people that Jesus is the reason for the season.
But if you look back at the history of the holiday, the reason for the season isn't always so clear.
Early Christmas celebrations were actually pretty rowdy. So rowdy that in the late 1600s, some Puritans actually banned celebrating it outright.
They did not like it. They didn't like the hints of heathenism and pagan traditions that were wrapped up in Christmas. So Christmas celebrations weren't even allowed at one point in the US.
It wasn't until after the Civil War that you had
This movement to kind of calm Christmas down and to turn it into a more genteel, family-oriented holiday. It didn't become a federal holiday until 1870, which is almost 100 years after the nation was founded.
Around this time, waves of European immigrants arrived to the US.
And all these new immigrants brought their holiday traditions from their old country. So German immigrants introduced the concept of decorating Christmas trees, and they helped to popularize the concept of Santa Claus.
And yet, that classic matching Christmas sweater style Christmas really comes about after World War II.
That's when you see a lot of these classic sights and sounds of American Christmas start to come together. So movies like It's a Wonderful Life and Miracle on 34th Street and the classic Christmas songs and chestnuts roasting on an open fire was perfected all during that time. So when people say that there's a war on Christmas, I think they're really expressing a nostalgia for a 1950s, 1960s Christmas.
Okay, now fast forward to 2005.
And actually, it's great as a researcher to be able to link it back to an exact date in October 2005.
This is Dan Cassino. He's a professor of government and law at Fairleigh Dickinson University in Madison, New Jersey.
In his research on political psychology, Dan traced the origin of the war on Christmas to a particular moment in 2005.
We had a Fox News analyst named John Gibson who was trying to sell his new book, The War on Christmas: How the Liberal Plot to Ban the Sacred Christian Holiday is Worse Than You Thought.
That October, John Gibson was invited to talk about his book on the O'Reilly Factor, which at the time
was Fox News' biggest show, and he's talked up his book. And they got lots of great feedback, so much that Bill O'Reilly started talking about it again and again and again and again. It made it an annual recurring segment.
Not before long,
we got large numbers of Americans who started to believe it, that there is a concern from the part of politicians to take Christ out of Christmas. And once you have 40 to 50% of Republicans saying that's true, it's very hard for the rest of the media to ignore it. It essentially becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Some on the far left actually denied there was any controversy at all, that I fabricated it.
Pair that with the fact that
for centuries in the United States, Christians had a privileged place in society. They were on top. They didn't have to worry about trying to accommodate other people's religions or other people's civic beliefs. And if you've been on top for a couple hundred years, movements towards equality feel like discrimination.
The war on Christmas, that whole narrative has been a very compelling rallying point, particularly for white evangelical Christians who are a crucial part of the GOP. And you hear it coming up every Christmas because of that. What's at stake is their cultural hegemony and political power. And that's a lot. And I can understand why people feel so up in arms about the war on Christmas.
And yet, while there has never been a concerted effort to actively secularize Christmas, Christmas present, like Christmas past, is changing.
This really is much more about politicians trying to be more inclusive, trying to say we're not just here for Christians, we want to include Jews and Muslims and Hindus and all these other groups. And so it's not really about trying to discriminate against Christians. It is much more about trying to be inclusive towards other members of a relatively diverse society.
And perhaps this more universal approach to the holiday season isn't so new after all.
Christians really don't have a monopoly on this time of year. There's this very human inclination to seek out warmth and light and family and home during a very, very dark time of the year. This impulse to retreat inwards and huddle up with your loved ones and shield yourself from the cold, and this impulse that people had back in the day to take the evergreen things of the world and bring them into your home and hold them as like symbols of hope. I think all that, those instincts definitely predate Christianity and are just very human. I think especially this year, there's so much to grieve during the holidays. So I hope that this is a year where Christians can just be really generous with Christmas and open-handed with it. Just because somebody says happy holidays, it doesn't make your Merry Christmas any less meaningful. Just let people celebrate light and hope wherever they find them.